It is not without trepidation and a synesthesia of mixed feelings that I come here. And Mr. Abdul Khalik asked me whether I would come and spend 15 to 20 minutes talking about the applications of the patterns of NLP in public speaking. I said, public speaking, and you want me to come? I said, I thought you are the experts on public speaking. He said, no, please come along. I must admit that I did feel very honored when I read the introduction which was circulated. I liked it too. When I thought about the applications of NLP in public speaking, I came up with the next trepidation in my mind. It's actually a 5-day residential program that I conduct. And I was cautioned about the 3 colors which will flare up. I'm also accused of loving my own voice, so that poses another challenge. So please feel free to tell me, Shankar, that's good enough. For those of you, how many of you are aware of NLP or neuro-linguistic programming as a domain? Heard a lot about it, and unfortunately, it has become more a lateral rah-rah program, whereas it's actually a part of cognitive science and neuroscience, and is a branch of epistemology. NLP tries to answer the question, how do I know what I know? How do you get up in the morning and know that I am Shankar? What happens in this 3 kilograms out of my presently 85, what happens in these 3 kilograms which allows me to be cognitive and conscious of everything which is around me? The study of that is NLP. The application of that is what we learn from these studies. Can we apply those in real day-to-day life? So my sharing with you today evening would concentrate on the latter, which is the application, not so much on the neocortex and the amygdala of the human brain. When I pondered about what is it that I could do today, I restricted myself to a few patterns which have been coded in NLP as providing excellence in public speaking. And I will restrict myself to 3, allowing more of interaction at the end. That's provided the red light doesn't go on. First, let me start with a small example. I already mentioned to you that I direct theatre. We were in the middle of constructing a scene in rehearsals, and the scene was very simple. The scene was the actor needed to go and look outside the window, look at horses passing by, and come back and report saying, I think some of the people from the armed forces, so to speak, from the royal court have come to the village. That's the dialogue. So this person goes out, looks, comes, and reports. And as the director, I was feeling that something is not okay. Something is not working okay. It was not authentic. His acting was not authentic. So then I set him down and I said, okay, let's go through this one more time. So he goes towards the window, looks out, comes back and delivers the dialogue. And I said, okay, before you start the dialogue, stop. You looked out of the window? Yes. There were horses from the royal court? Yes. And then I said, describe the horses. And he goes, what? What do you mean? What he had done was treated it as an artifact. I need to go, look outside, come back and deliver the dialogue. He didn't see any horses. So I gave him an exercise. I said to him, take some time off, 15 minutes, we'll redo the scene, but you need to take a pen and paper and write in detail. How many horses did you see? What were the color of those horses? Who were the people sitting on it? What were they wearing? Give me the minutest detail as if you have all the time in the world to look at it. Then when he came back, And then when he peeped out of the window, and then we delivered the dialogue, it was more authentic. Because he was reporting that he saw horses. And it was important to see them and not just speak them. From this, I derived the first pattern of the application of NLP, visualizing your speech. You need to be able to see what you're saying. If you were at the treadmill and you were looking out of the glass window, looking at the swimming pool, look at them now. See those people beautifully unclad who are swimming around in the water. And that provides the authenticity when you say, and I was looking at it and I was overjoyed that this must be something which is very stimulating. So the pattern that I'm talking about is visualization. A couple of people used to come to me because of their Toastmasters speech and then say, can I practice it in front of you? So one of them said, it was a long time ago, and I was sitting with my dad, and once again I said, what was he wearing? How old were you? Was he on the chair and you on the ground? Can you please create the details of the visual aspects of what you are now going to deliver auditorily? Because the human brain accepts 3 types of inputs. Multiple types of inputs, but for our purpose. Visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And what is important is that when I see something, it gets communicated through this energy which transfers between the speaker and the listener. But if I don't see it, you only say, well, that was a great speech, but it was not very authentic. It was not authentic because every part of the speech was auditory without a visual background, which he or she needs to internalize as you speak. So my invitation to you is to consider this pattern as you deliver your speeches. Not that you're not doing it. Everything that I might say may be something which is known to you. So look at it as a reminder. So the importance of visualizing when you're communicating becomes a key positivity when you're delivering a public speech, a presentation, a theater performance, any form of communication that you choose. The second one, which I thought I would share with you is, let me tell you another little incident which happened. Since I am a trainer, coach, everything has been said about me, the younger generation comes with me because they need to be certified as a trainer. In one of the programs that we were conducting, the first break was at 10:30 a.m. You start at 9, an hour and a half later you take a break. I took the break at 10:15. So when we were outside, my quote-unquote students came and said, "Sir, is it okay to ask why did you take the break early?" I said, "It's okay to ask, but I want you to answer." And they said, maybe it was an appropriate time, maybe you were changing the module, maybe there was an appropriate break in what you were talking. I said, none of the above. I said, did you notice 2 people looked at their wristwatch? One person leaned back and yawned. If 3 out of 12 people have checked out, who am I talking to? So the second pattern which I want to share with you is external attention and calibration. Are you calibrating your audience as you speak? And that is only possible if your attention is external. What happens is, in the early stages of you trying to be a public speaker, and it's normal, is your attention is internal. Some people even have told me saying, at this stage I turned the page in my mind because it was 2-page speech. So they know where the speech is turning. Great start. But that clearly indicates that your attention is inward. And if your attention is inward, you will not calibrate the audience. This becomes extremely significant if you're in the corporate world and making presentations. Let's assume you're making a presentation about the financial status of a project, the supply chain challenges, and you're making it to the board. The chairman is there, the board members are there, the financial controller is there. Now, you are a very senior person, so nobody's going to stop you and say, I don't believe in that. So you put up a slide, nobody's going to stop you and say, no, I don't agree with that slide, because of being decorous during the meeting. However, it is possible that at one point of your presentation, the financial controller just goes and watch me. That's all he does. It should send you a signal that something is not okay. And therefore, your ability is to stop there and say, so is there anything you would like me to clarify? And he goes, how does he know that I have a doubt? That's elegant. Because he has not communicated to you verbally. He has not over-communicated to you non-verbally. He's just had a twitch. And if you don't catch it, you've lost an opportunity. Because he might actually decide to make a note of it on paper, on email. It's too late. So your external attention is connected to calibration. So are you calibrating? When you're talking, you should be able to see the change of the color of the skin of of somebody who's sitting in front of you, so that you know that, oh, maybe this is getting into embarrassing ground and I need to change track. I start talking about a joke, and then I notice, oh my God, the color changed, which means it's probably not decorous for me to continue with that joke. But if you're not calibrating, since your attention is not external, you're just living in your own world. And I thought communicating is a matter of living in another person's world and including him. I invite you to consider that. On that particular space, I say that if you know what you're doing when you're doing it, please pay attention to what I'm saying. If you know what you're doing when you're doing it, you're not yet an expert. You should have mastered your speech. You should have practiced this enough. And then you come and surrender to the audience and calibrate what's going on. So you don't know what you're doing, because now you're gathering fresh information. It's like driving. You don't really, come on, those of you who've been driving for some time don't really sit down and say left mirror, right mirror, rear view mirror, shoulder check. That's what you did when the day you got your license. If you're still doing that, we need to talk. You know, when they tell you how to take a left turn on the curb, he says, when your front tire approaches the start of the curb, start turning the steering wheel. Come on, is that what you do today? After a few days of driving, you just turn left. Because you become an expert. I'm using expert word technically. So if you know what you're doing when you're doing it, you're not yet an expert. So what do I do to become that? Nothing but practice. Nothing but practice. But being aware, consciously aware that the skill that you're embedding is external attention and calibration. The ability to calibrate. Micro muscle movements should be visible to you. That can only happen when you have totally surrendered what you're going to say to your unconscious mind and take your conscious attention to what's happening around you. The third one, which I would like to share with you, is something, again, I will share in an instant. Years ago, our older son left for Australia, and my wife and myself and our younger son went to drop him, came back, and life went on. Those of you who know the Lulu supermarket in Karama, you've seen that?
Yes.
Opposite that there is a park.
Yes.
And this was 2 years later, when we had told the Lulu supermarket to prepare something for us, some coconut or something. We decided to go for a stroll. And when we decided to go for a stroll there, if you notice, there are public phone booths which are embedded in the park. Have you seen them?
Yes.
Public phone booths. So my wife suddenly slowed down in front of one of them, and her state changed. She became inwardly focused, and there was a bit of nostalgia which I could calibrate. So I said, everything's okay. She said, 2 years ago, after dropping a pool, our oldest son, and when we came back, we called him from this pool. And that was 2 years ago. And she doesn't remember it every day. But what she did happen was when she came near to that phone, she remembered. Correct? Yes or no? Yes. So we call that anchors. Anchors which create a change in your mind. Let me invite you to your own personal experience. Has it ever happened to you, and this is a metaphor, you can change what you want. Has it ever happened to you that you're passing by a Chinese restaurant or a Thai restaurant and the smell of the food comes and suddenly you remember your holiday in Bangkok? Does it happen to you? Or you go to a classroom and suddenly you remember the old friends who used to sit next to you. Does that happen to you, sir? I just demonstrated calibration. Am I right, sir?
I've never been to Bangkok.
That's right. That's right. And how did I know that? And I went and spoke to him about a classroom. You need to ponder. He didn't put up his hand and say, I have never been to Bangkok. Why did I take the example of a classroom? Because in the 15 minutes ago, he had given a business card which talked about a training company. How did I know that he had never been to Bangkok? Because I calibrated his eye movement. My attention was external. So I'm demonstrating. Fair? Because he never said I've never been to Bangkok. But immediately my attention went to him and I said, I need to include him in this. He's getting left out. So I'm just demonstrating the pattern which I'm using. What has that got to do with public speaking? Let's start. In the early stage, you practice from a pedagogical point of view, artificial point of view. Am I allowed to take a live example of today? Yep. Am I allowed to do that? Yeah. Yep. There were 3 learnings on parenting. Is that correct? Am I right? Yes. Now consider you delivering the speech by marking 3 areas on the floor and using each of that area to talk about that learning. So I come here and talk about how important it is to do, number 1, provide responsibility, give them the chance to be able to make mistakes, learn from this. 2, to be able to provide them variety. And 3, whatever that is that you want to implement. Now when you mark that spatially, you create 3 anchors. Now obviously we don't want a situation where the audience says, oh, I think he's creating spatial anchors. No, we don't need that. That's the way you practice it. And then you allow it to dissolve again. So if you look back, this is where I really spoke about the fact that you need to do visualization. Slowly I moved here to talk about the fact that you need to do external attention and calibration. And slowly I moved here to be able to talk about anchors. So when we talk about public speaking, use space. Now I had this bit of a challenge, by the way. Very senior team at Petrofac. And they were doing an advanced presentation skills program. So I stopped the divisional head and said, why are you pacing up and down? And he stopped and said, what's wrong with you trainers here? I went for a training program last year. They told me to walk up and down. They told me use space. Now I'm using space. You're saying, why are you walking? The question is not whether you need to use space or not. The question is there a conscious way in which you're using the space and then surrendering to the unconscious? Space is available. So you can start by saying, my speech is made up of about 4 chapters, if you know what I mean, 4 agenda points. Then you can say, hey, you know what? All the thanking of the Toastmasters and all the respectful greetings I'm going to give from here. I'm going to talk about the subject that I'm going to talk about. Then you know what? Since there are 4 chapters, I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, and 4 spaces. So what happens is you step into the space, you deliver chapter number 1. You leave it, go to chapter number 2. Now, it shouldn't become obvious, as I said, it comes with practice. But there are tremendous advantages of it. The biggest advantages of people around this room who are professional presenters elsewhere, making a living, is it avoids contamination. Contamination I'm using again very technically. What it means is, let's assume I'm talking about the marketing success of our project. And then I move to the financial layout of the project, and I've really overrun the budget. Correct? I am anchoring, quote unquote, the weakness of the project that I'm working at this place, and not contaminating the rah-rah which I delivered in that space. Now, when I'm talking about the finance, it's quite possible that the marketing director said, Shankar, can you go back to that slide? It happens, right? In real life. Can you go back to that slide? And that's a marketing slide, where I'm strong. So I just do very naturally say, yes, of course, sir. Go to that slide and say, yes, sir. And I come back here to answer the question, so that my rah-rah is contained and anchored here and does not get contaminated by my poor performance. So I've differentiated my marketing from my finance to the future project, so to speak. It depends on which one you are. I've got the red signal. What I've attempted to do is, let me again say, what I attempt to do is to first in here and say thank you very much. Feel honored. I spoke to you about how it is important to visualize what you're saying. The second is how it is important to calibrate with external attention, which I demonstrated in a living and natural environment. And third is to say how you can use space intelligently by anchoring your key points spatially. What it does, it opens similar folders in the cognitive brain. So you have 4 folders on your desktop, open 4 folders for the 4 chapters that you're going to talk about. Thank you very much for all your attention.
Well, all I can say after this speech that we are all speechless. Let's take a short break and reconcile. There'll be a 10-minute break.
Fantastic.